You see the recording button. That's a good thing.
Yep,
Streaming
that's
live.
working.
Great. Great.
So Deb's just waiting for it to stream, and it should now be streaming any second. Yep. Good. All right.
Yay. All right, Deb, we'll just wait for the go word from you that we can start.
Did it seem to work better where we all muted ourselves and Jeannie did the pledge? That way we're not out of sync and yeah. Sorry, Jeannie.
That's okay. I think you're all used to my speedy nature, so.
I'm going to try to lip sync you when you do it.
Okay. Good. If someone else can do an interpretive dance, we'll make this a full smorgasbord. Hey, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Who is that connecting down below there with this?
Brian Nolan.
It's Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey.
I have 4 o'clock.
All right. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Good job, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Nice to see you. Thank you to anyone from the public who might be joining us today. Before we get into the full agenda, I just want to share with the board that you'll be approving the district and board committees at the end of the meeting, and we will be adding a report there, which we will do at the start of the meeting right now. There is a small committee, Brian, Mike, and Vern, that meet once a week to talk about COVID-19 preparedness and supply orders and everything around the sort of safety aspect of reopening. And Jen is now a board member, board representative to that committee. So today she's going to report out here just to give us an overview. And then in future meetings, she'll report out during the committee section. So with thanks to everybody for all of your work and for allowing a board member on that, Jen, I'll ask you to report out.
So as of today, I officially got added to that ad hoc committee. We actually chatted, the 4 of us, last week and did some preliminary discussion around some of the PPE selection, ventilation questions, and so forth that are related to pandemic planning. This makes a bit of sense that I'm involved in it because this is hazmat, just in a different form. I can't imagine, have ever imagined that we'd have hazmat this big, but at least we'll have an opportunity to keep an eye on things. And I appreciate all 3 of them for being so generous with their time and with their talents with it.
Thanks. And just by way of background, this is work Jen does with other school districts also. So we're grateful for being able to use your expertise in our very own home district. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. That's all I have, Jamie. I will turn it over to you whenever you're ready. I can't hear you.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You were just testing us, weren't you?
I was. I was just saying Mr. Stragi is trying to connect and I texted him and told him stop, go.
Oh.
He's on vacation, doesn't need to. So sorry. So thanks for being a part of that, Jen. We really appreciate your involvement and your expertise. That'll be incredibly helpful. What I wanted to do is actually share a screen with you. So let me set that up. And it's just kind of my way of giving you an update about kind of where we are with the reopening process and any new information that we have since our last communication meeting. And so I'll go through this. And then if you have any questions that you want to ask specific to what I'm presenting or just in general, feel free to ask it. If I can't answer it, Brian or Matt will be able to, hopefully. And if none of us can, we'll find the answer and help you out with that down the road. But just wanted to make you aware that Governor Cuomo had a press conference today and he made some remarks that kind of caused for pause a bit. And I just need to make you aware of what some of the remarks were, just in case you are questioned by anybody in the community. But the first quote that I have up here is that, he said, and I quote, "This is between the school district and the parents. The ultimate decision maker are the parents, and I don't hear enough from the parents' concerns and the parents' involvement in dialogue with parents." This was in reference to school districts communicating with parents, fielding their questions, and being able to have a dialogue with parents. And the governor was saying that he doesn't believe that it's happening enough with school districts. And so for us, just as a reminder, we've had multiple forums with our community, and we've had really a pretty fantastic dialogue. We had about 100 community members on the original forum that helped guide our thinking and our planning for the reopening. And we had over 150 staff members on our original forum that helped guide our reopening plan. Once we had the draft, you may remember that we had about 550 parents, community members on the forum where we unveiled the draft reopening plan. And it was just a draft because we wanted to get feedback from parents. And many of you attended those forums, and you saw that the presentation itself was maybe 30 minutes long. The forum itself was about 2.5, almost 3 hours long, because it was all questions and a response to their questions. I know, speaking for comment, Brian, Matt, and Matt Schrage, myself, and various others, we fielded countless emails from staff, community members and staff with questions, and we've responded to every single one. And if we haven't, it's it was an oversight, and I would hope those people would ask a follow-up email, but I don't believe we missed any. And so I think for Canandaigua, we've had some really, really good dialogue. It's never enough, but we were given 2 weeks to create these plans after the guidance was released. And so if you put that into context, the 2 weeks we've had, plus all the conversations we've had, I feel like we've done a fairly decent job. Not to say we couldn't have done better, because definitely we could have, but I feel like that criticism was, in some of these comments, were all encompassing, and I don't think they really relate to every single community and school district, but the way it was worded, it made you feel like he was speaking for all schools across New York State. He said he'll make the determination later in the week whether or not we'll reopen school. Just because a district puts out a plan does not mean that if we're reopened, that parents are going to come and teachers are going to come. It's not, well, the government said the schools are open now, everyone must go. And he just said it's not going to happen that way. And then the last part was really was tough to hear. They're not going to trust the school district. This is an issue of public health. But what I think he was really trying to say there is it's that folks aren't going to just trust the school district without the answers, that there needs to be that dialogue and constant communication and clear communication so they have the information. The way some people read it was the public, they don't trust schools. I don't think that was the intent of his remarks, although that's how it felt when he said it. But that there needs to be more than just, we have a plan, trust us, come on back. We need to add a lot of information to that plan. And then the top bullet here was a tricky one, that he alluded to schools being prepared to do regular testing of students and staff, that we need to be able to share with the community what that looks like. And that was confusing because in the guidance document from the Department of Health, it actually says that we should work closely with the local health department to determine any kind of diagnostic referral process for anybody who exhibits symptoms or has been in close contact with someone that's presumed or tested positive for COVID-19, or has traveled to any of those states with widespread transmission. And so I'll say that again, a process for the provision of a referral for diagnostic testing. But it has to be done in close consultation with the local Department of Health. And so the way it was worded today in the press conference might lead people to believe that in order to come back, you have to be tested, staff and students. And that's just not the case based on the guidance documents that we have. But we do have a process. If a student is symptomatic, we have a process where we'll call kids down. We have a separate room for people who are symptomatic with a nurse to be supervised, to be evaluated, picked up, a referral process to their physician for the purpose of testing. And, and I hope that's what he was referring to. It just didn't come off that way in the press conference. It came off as a little bit more, districts have to test kids. And even in the NICED document on page 41, it references that there's limited tests. And if a district wants to be a testing center, they have to apply for it through a waiver process, because there's just not enough tests for every district to do that. And so kind of what we've run into time and time again is contradictory language or language that just doesn't seem to match up between the two documents and between some press conferences. And I get it. It's a lot of details. And I keep saying it's kind of like peeling an onion. You peel a layer and you're faced with another layer that you have to tackle. And it just, and so there's a lot of hands in the pot and some discrepancies of what's being said. The governor also expressed criticism of the reopening plans, and he at one point called them indiscernible. Some of them are indiscernible, and the ones that are discernible, there's just a lot of questions and they don't make sense. And so the curiosity around that, when the original guidance came out, the message we were receiving from Albany was that it was purposely vague to allow districts autonomy to create plans that are manageable and made sense based on their community. And there has been contradictory language, and we've reached out to Albany and the governor's office several times for clarity. And the response that we've received is the information you need is in the guidance document. Everything you need is in the guidance document. And so if it's vague, we certainly would like to know exactly what's vague so that we can add the detail, because we have the detail. We have it in our handbook. We have it in our visuals. We have the detail, but that's not what was asked to be submitted. It was very different. So just wanted you to be aware of those things as we move forward. Remember, here we are, and there's been some confusion. People are saying, you know, if I pick virtual learning, if I pick the hybrid plan, and I've heard that a lot. And so I just clarified a little bit that it's really virtual learning or the in-person plan. This continuum is under the in-person plan. And based on current guidance from the state, we believe we'd have to open in the hybrid area. If there's some leniency around the 6 fee, or if we can figure out a proper barrier system, then maybe we move up to the in-person UBK 12 for the people who select the in-person Monday through Friday. Or if the numbers, infection rates increase, maybe the governor moves us to remote. And so it's really just a continuum, but it's a selection between virtual or in-person learning. And so moving off of there, these are some things we shared with the board on Friday, and we shared with a variety of folks. These were actually shared with all the parents and our district staff. Just some general definitions of what, these are terms you're going to hear over and over again. So what does it actually mean? And then some visuals. And it's not the nitty gritty detail, but it's a good snapshot of what it might look like. And so primary elementary school, it's a 2-page document that really talks about if I pick virtual learning or if I pick the in-person, and what it might look like if it's in hybrid or if it's in remote, so forth and so on. And we have a different document for the middle school. It covers the same pieces, and then the academy. And so that went out on Friday. And what we told staff at that time and the community was there'll be further information coming out, would include a handbook and then a survey where you will actually select what choice you want. And this is the handbook. It's basically ready. I would like to spend a little more time looking at it and going through it a bit more. It's 20-some pages long. And you know, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We took some pieces from other districts that we saw and liked, and then applied them to us and modified them for us. But it's really coming together. So the plan was to send this handbook out tomorrow with the survey. Send it out tomorrow, and then give families 1 week to make their selection. After hearing the governor speak today, my preference actually is to hold off and not send this out until the end of the day Friday. Hopefully by that time he's made his announcement about school. He said he was going to do it this week, because what I don't want him to do is make an announcement that might negate any of the stuff that we put forth. And then we've wasted people's time. So we would prefer to hold off until Friday, even though that I know that causes a crunch for our building administration and counselors and other staff for creating schedules, and it gives us a little less time. Although what I would say is we were originally going to put it out Tuesday and have it be due on Tuesday or the following week. My suggestion now is to put it out Friday and have it due Wednesday. And so that still gives what I would consider plenty of time, but it only puts us about 1 day behind the amount of time we need to reschedule folks based on what those decisions are. And so that piece is there. The survey, we think this is what it will look like, just so you have kind of an idea, just kind of an intro explaining where we are. What we ask them to do is put their email address. Most of this stuff will automatically load based on their email address, but they'll child name, student ID, And I think, of course, I can't see my bottom, what it says, because I have a thing blocking it. What is it? Can someone tell me what it says?
Child's
Oh,
grade level.
child's grade level, thank you.
Mhm.
So, that would be there as well. Moving on, we'd ask them to make their selection, whether they want to do the in-person. And, this is where I want to change some language a little bit here because they're returning to school with the in-person, which appears as though it'll be the hybrid model
Right.
at this point, and then virtually. So they make their selection there. And then will they need transportation? Yes or no? So they've had some time to think about it. Remember, we're trying to decrease the density on transportation. So a little bit more of a commitment there. It's not saying that if they say no and they need to use the transportation, we would still provide it, but it really helps solidify those numbers a little bit more for us. And then we're considering also doing the internet questions again, simply because they made their selection and now the folks that are doing virtual will know if they need any help and we'll have a little bit better idea of what they actually need. And then we'll have to convert this into some kind of a paper form to mail home to families that don't fill it out. But the default would be if we don't have any response from anyone, and we've done this and we've sent it through paper, the default would be in person. We would try to make that clear, and I think it was maybe clear at the very beginning, but still, we'll try to do our best and we'll make phone calls. We'll do everything we can to communicate with families. But again, this is the internet survey piece. And that's really kind of the update. Some of the questions I'm getting, we're all getting some pretty similar questions. And so we're trying to convert it into a Q&A, an FAQ document that we'll put on our website. So after this board meeting, I'll probably spend an hour or so just trying to get a jump on that. And we'll continue to work on it through the week. And then some of our staff members have asked a series of questions. I think we've compiled that and broken it down to about 160 questions. And so we're working hard on answering all of those questions. We don't have them all answered yet. And I'll be honest, some of them, we're not gonna have the answers to every question, but we're trying and we wanna communicate with them as best we can based on what we know with changing information. But things like, I've heard a lot from parents recently saying, how do I make my selection? So I might wanna pick virtual, but I don't know if my child will have their AP class or their IB class that I want them to have. And, what if they're restricted from a class? And my answer to that is not perfect. And it's really hard to build a schedule unless we know what we're building it for. So we can't necessarily show them their schedule before we have their selections. But what we think we need to try to figure out how to do is build their schedules, share them out before school opens. And if they see we're not able to offer X, Y, or Z, now they can say, all right, that's not acceptable. I think I'll switch to the in-person option or something along those lines. Fully well knowing now that I just said that, the administrators that are listening on right now, their eyes are probably that big because they know that that's not going to be easy to manage. But I don't know any other way to do it and still be a service organization. We want to service our stakeholders, but we do not have the capacity and the ability to just do everything everybody wants. It's unfortunately not possible. So that's kind of where we are. I think at this time, if anybody has questions, we'd be happy to answer any.
What questions does the board have? When will it end? That's my question. It's just such a difficult time, and we really appreciate how everybody is rolling with the punches. And I know you're feeling like you're being punched quite a bit. And so we offer our support and our encouragement to just keep doing, because this is really, really hard. And I feel for everybody involved in this, parents, students, teachers, staff, everybody feels the stress of it. And I think that the time sort of favors in a way if you can live with some uncertainty, if you can accept some things that are not ideal, and if you can continue to practice the kind of grace we keep talking about, to just understand that we are doing our very, very best. And I have to comment on the governor's words, which simply do not apply to our district. I'm so deeply offended that he would associate any of those comments with the way the people in our district are working. So I understand he is painting with a broad brush and painting all districts in the same way. And I understand too that there's a tremendous amount of stress in the decision making he has to make. But I I feel that we have done a phenomenal job of communicating with parents and students and all of our constituents. And I really encourage everybody to keep their spirits up around that, because you're doing the right things.
Thanks, Jean.
Yep. Questions or comments from board members? Okay. Are you ready to move on, Jamie? Do you have anything else under this category, or?
I would just add a couple things. If you have ideas, we're all ears. I asked Cheryl if she might ask this question, but I just want to bring it up. This is an example. Cheryl emailed a great idea earlier about do we have barriers? Maybe can we do those any kind of polycarbonate barriers on buses or something like that? Actually, Matt Fitch's listserv last week answered that question for us. We're not legally allowed to. It's against what we're allowed to do. We can't put barriers on buses. I believe it was Matt's, right? Okay. All right. You're looking at me like maybe I was making something up, and for a minute there, I felt like I was. All right. So we weren't allowed to do that. And then she also asked a question about, could we do barriers like polycarbonate desktop barriers to look to transition some of our primary elementary school kids back more full time. And so that was something Brian Nolan was all over last week. We actually found a polycarbonate barrier that was more than it went out past the desk. So if they turned sideways, it was still there and blocked them from their neighboring. And so he called and got a quote, and it was about $300,000 just for the primary elementary school. Brian, anything to add to that? And so, yeah, we are, we're open to all ideas. Some of them we've tried to look at, and they don't seem feasible at the moment. I reached out to Bob Duffy, I think Wednesday of last week, and just asked him the mask and then the shield piece. Could the mask be the mask and the shield be the barrier? If everybody wore a mask and the shield, does that satisfy the 2 out of the 3 requirements? And he thought it was a good question, sent it up to the governor's office. And then Bob Duffy's assistant reached out to me and said he was going to put me in direct contact with the governor's office on this topic, but I've yet to hear. So it was just a different idea. We still have the issue with the cafeteria, where even if we had that, how do we feed everybody and follow the regulation? We don't have the capacity or the space to do it. So we'd have to figure that out. But anyway, we're trying to think creatively. So if you have ideas, please let us know. We know this is a hardship on the community.
John?
Jamie, any thought to getting some tents and putting them up so the teachers, if they wanted to, could take their kids outside for different classes?
Yep, we've talked to the different building principals about that. They've not talked about doing it for the purpose of classes as much as they've talked about doing it for like dismissal and arrival and managing that, so parents won't need to come into buildings, or maybe even for lunches. And so I think all the principals have brought this up to us, and we've asked them, consider how the tent might work and how you might leverage it. And if you want to, let us know, but we have to apply for a waiver. It's considered a building or I'm not sure, a structure. And so we'd have to apply for a waiver at SED to do it. And then we would also have to apply for a waiver in the city, I believe, because that tent would be up longer than what they're allowed to be up concurrently. And so we would have to ask them to give us a waiver to keep those up, which I'm guessing they would allow just because they know the situation we're in. But we're interested in doing that if we see that there'd be a benefit to it.
A certain set of bricks that I know very well went down the tent routine and was ultimately told that 6 weeks is it unless we wanted to turn it into a building. I don't think that that's a good enough use of a tent to then turn it into a building, but that was the guidance that we got. One idea that keeps coming up that I have seen implemented in some places is the use of lawn chairs. And I mean this sincerely. If you have kids take lawn chairs with them that are in those bags, and they use them when they move classrooms, that is less that needs to be cleaned. Because
Really?
it's the kids assigned lawn chair, and they can take the lawn chair outside so they're not sitting on wet ground. So something as simple as a lawn chair may be an option also.
It's a really neat idea. You put that in an email earlier today, and I thought, wow, what a great idea.
Of course, it didn't come from me, but I'll claim any part of it I can.
I joke that I want to invent a backpack that turns into a chair with a little table part that comes over top. So we could solve all of our budget woes if we could invent that.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, thank you, Jamie. Any other updates? Deb, was your hand up? Oh, okay. Is that it for you, Jamie?
That's it.
Okay, then we have minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Michelle, and a second. Milton, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, Deb. And warrants, Cheryl and or Milton? Milton a first, Cheryl a second. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously too. Thank you. And we have a consensus agenda. I'll ask for motions, please. Cheryl and Jen, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Board goals were distributed to board members and we'll ask to pass those now. So I'll ask for motions on those, please. Michelle and Beth, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously too. And district and board committees, I'll ask for motions on that, please. John and Jen, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously also. Any closing comments, Jamie?
I don't think so. I just really appreciate everybody's support and I'm so thankful for our team of folks. It's a heavy lift, but we're doing it together.
Yep, perfect words to end with. I'll ask for motion to adjourn then. Michelle and Milton, thank you very much, everybody. Good night. Thanks, Deb.